Hey Julie, okay, so here is your past life spread. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at where we are, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day with the relationship and the feelings involved, another important day, the death and the lesson learned. And we'll get hints of time throughout this, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to relay to you the images and impressions that I'm getting. And your job is going to be to try to make connections where you can. And I'm going to try to help you however I can, okay? So let's start. And we're going to start in Europe, okay? And so what's coming to mind right away is like kind of like a winter's day where it's like bleak and dreary, and I'm seeing like woods that are kind of like wet and not dead, but like the leaves are gone, and it's kind of just like this drab, dreary, kind of muddy feeling about it. It doesn't feel negative, it's just like the environment is what I'm trying to bring to mind. So it's definitely like a foresty feeling. It also feels like we're looking at England is what it feels like more than anything, but it doesn't feel like we're looking at like a hub or a center of town, or it feels like a very like slow place, which I guess it could be slow like for, until like technology came into play, but it just feels like even today this place would still be like farmland, or maybe even on a property now where it's just like ignored or whatever it is. It's just, I feel like this is not even a city today. And I also feel like as far as the time period, it's feeling like a period piece movie that would have like the Bronte sisters in it, like that kind of so I guess I want to say we're looking like around like 1700s is what it feels like. 1600s, 17. Definitely not modern. I feel like there's a lot of foot walking. And I also, when I laid this down, this is a male. We're looking at a male life, and we're looking at like a very male life. Like there's a lot of times it comes through with like, balanced energy, this or that, but it's like this is fully male life. And they're even showing me, so it's this guy, it's like they're taking me to a time in your life where you're already full grown. So sometimes they take me to the childhood and bring me through the life, but I guess right now what's important is that we see this full grown man, beard, like even becoming like salt and peppery in a way. Like, so we're looking at this older guy, broad, just like tall, facial hair, very just kind of like a woodsy guy, okay? So keep that in mind. And how you can be making connections already so far is, one, if you've had any pull or interest towards what did I say, England, like that can even be like the decor, the language, the food, the landscape, just anything like that. Also, if you had any pull towards reading novels or seeing movies in that time period, that's actually another kind of like trigger you could be aware of, and that would be a connection as well. Also, how you can connect is, one, if you're more of a forest girl than, let's say, a beach girl or something like that. If you are a tree person, if you connect with the woods, the solitude of the woods as well, like that would be the place to go if you wanted to go meditate or be alone or catch a breath and be yourself. It's like something about it being like a sanctuary. So you might be someone that you might be someone not only that like, it could be, yeah, you find sanctuary being out in nature, and you like being out in nature, yeah, but this can also speak to someone who likes the idea of having like a little room for themselves, whether it's an office or a meditation room, or like as a kid, I used to like, there was an extra closet in our house, and I would like make a fort out of the closet. Like, so it's like that kind of thing where you might be someone that likes to have a space all of your own, just where you can retreat to. And even to take that a step further, this might be coming up, and this might be like, I'm talking about it a lot because there's still some information coming through, so that usually tells me it's kind of important, where you might want to actually now, like very soon, take a retreat, go to a retreat. Maybe you feel like you need to get away. If that's the case, if you feel like you need to get away, or you need to like recalibrate in some way, whether it's emotionally or spiritually or mentally, physically, whatever, consider going, taking a road trip and going for the weekend somewhere to get away. Maybe you know a place, but otherwise, like, look. It feels like that's important, is that you take a couple of days to be with yourself, process whatever seems to be wanting you to process. I don't know what that would mean, but if that speaks to you, great. If not, that's cool too. So let's move on. Here we have the Hunter card. This is what you did with the majority of your time. So a lot of times we get this card when we're looking at like tribal communities where there's people who are actually hunting, but like to live. But here what it feels like is we're looking at this guy who I feel like he owns property that is it's a feeling of being comfortable on your land. So he has land, he has property, but he's not like that kind of wealthy, ooh, look at what I have kind of person. This is a guy where I feel like it's either he inherited property or he won it almost. It's like this guy is very like he's very what's the word, capable, like it's almost like whatever he chooses to put his mind to, he accomplishes. So here's the thing too, with that connection, you could be someone who's like that, who when you put your mind to something and you set your mind to something, you achieve things, and you know, you did well in school and you did good in sports and this and that. You might find that you're that kind of person. On the flip side, how you can also make a connection is when our souls experience something in one life, they can come back in another life and experience something completely different just for the experience. So while one, you could be a very accomplished person, or you know how to achieve things and set your mind to things and get it done, or you could have come back into this life where it's different than that and you find it difficult to accomplish goals or finish what you start, or you know, things like that. And if that's the case and you wonder why do things not go my way, it's because you chose to come in to experience a different experience here, but that doesn't mean you're stuck in that experience. And this goes for anything we talk about. You're not stuck in anything in your current life. Karma is like done. You can, you know, if you feel like something is holding you back karmically, you can literally release that and no longer be held back on a very real subconscious level, spiritual level, if that makes sense. So it again, just like here, if you feel like you not butt heads, what's it called, when like you just keep coming to like a ceiling, you can't get past it, so to speak, that if that's the case and you feel like you formed a habit, and this goes for a lot of things too, where you form a habit, if you feel like you formed a habit, you have to like acknowledge that, oh, this is a habit and I want to change it. And all you have to do is realize that you've had a life. It's part of your soul memory. You had a life here where you're very capable of accomplishing anything you set your mind to. And because you've had that before, you can have it again. And so, but again, you could be someone who already is that way. All right, so just keep that in mind as well. The Hunter card is coming up because this is also the provider card. You can see the little provide word there. Here, actually, maybe you can't see it. Okay, wait. Provide, right there. Okay. It feels like you are, yes, the provider. I feel like there is a family involved with you. Like you're a husband, and I feel like at this point that they're showing me, you have a child either on the way or very young, and you're someone that goes to the woods. I feel like you hunt, but it's not like, you know, hunting for pleasure, even though you're good at it and you enjoy it to an extent, you enjoy it, but you are hunting to like kill, eat, skin, use as a, you know, use the fur, like you use all of the animal, and there is a respect in the hunt from you, coming off of you. So there's this feeling of respect. There's a feeling of like understanding that you actually like, okay, I don't know if the words are going to be right, but it's like a feeling of like you owe nature, or you owe the animals, which you do by being grateful for being there so that you can feed your family, if that makes sense. So there's like a feeling of gratitude that comes along with the animals or with the hunt. It's not like a disrespectful thing, like, you know, you understand what you're doing. You're taking animal lives in order to feed your family. And so there's an appreciation, and there's also like an understanding of what's going on, like an exchange of energy. So in your current life too, you could be someone who shows, you really might be someone that shows gratitude often for the smaller things. And if that's not the case, you can find that your life would actually turn up a notch in brightness, like in joy, if you actually do start to show gratitude to the little things. Little things like what's it called? Like getting a red light. I know it sounds so weird, but you get a red light at the right time and it saves you from a wreck later on, right? I know that's kind of odd because you don't know what you're getting, so it's hard to be grateful for that, but it's even like something like that, like just like opening your eyes to be grateful for almost like everything that comes your way, like understanding that life in itself is like a spiritual experience and that there's no reason not to be like profoundly like appreciative for every single moment, because every single moment is working in your favor in some way. So that was a weird rant that went somewhere. Okay, so if that speaks to you, keep that in mind as well. There's also something that has to do with animals. If you feel, I mean, a lot of people love animals, but if you actually feel that there's something about animals that come from a certain place, like deer, like animals that people hunt, like even farm animals too. I guess the animals that people typically use for food and clothing, things like that, you might actually feel either one, like very respectful or grateful for them, or really like those kinds of animals, or two, what was it? There's something else that came to mind. So it's either you're really grateful for those animals, or two, you might actually be triggered when you read about like animal cruelty. So animal cruelty might be a trigger for you, so keep that in mind if that's the case, and if not, that's cool too. So let's go to the first important day. Here we have the trauma card. Alright, so I'm seeing what is going on. I'm trying to see what's going on with the trauma, and then the relationships involved. We have the family card, which is really cool. Well, I mean, maybe not cool for what's about to happen, but it's cool here because when I laid this down, it felt like a family issue. Then this card came down. So that's kind of fun to see when, like kind of validating for me, which I kind of like sometimes. But then here we have the disappointment card. So here's the disappointment card with this day. And I'm trying to see what is going on, because what it feels like is a death of some sort or a very like hard injury. So I'm just trying to... So it feels weird. Okay, so there's something about like a gun. There's something about a trigger being pulled and then shot. So there's something about like someone getting shot but like just grazed. There's someone being shot. So I feel like for some reason, I don't know how this is happening, but there's something where, and this is years later, and I feel like something happens with your kid who's a son. So you have a son. And I feel like something is happening where either he finds a gun or he's playing with a friend with their guns. Because he has a gun right now as a child here, because it's like, it's almost like it was a gift to him, because it's the kind of thing that was gifted back in these days. I don't know. You might want to Google that and see if like parents gave their kids guns when they were back in this time, because it might have been like a normal thing. I don't know. But he has like a gun, and I feel like something goes off. It's not properly used, and there might be a friend involved, and it's like because they were playing, I feel like your son got grazed in the head enough where it put him in kind of like a non-working coma, like a coma, like yeah, like there's an unconscious period. So there's this like period, it's like almost like the disappointment is kind of like an overriding kind of a grief. And I feel like it's very short period, but it's very intense, because I feel like this son of yours is either the only son you have, or he's your favorite. And I feel like he's your oldest too. And if anything, favorite, it almost like by this point it feels like there's like a little sister involved, honestly. So I feel like at this point we're looking at you having 2 children, and then the oldest one gets this injury, and there's this feeling of you not knowing how to handle the emotions, because you as a grown man, you're very like, again, manly, like to the extent of like not being like very emotional, but just knowing like there's grief involved here and you don't know how to process the emotions. So in your current life, you could be someone that has a hard time processing grief, processing people around you dying, being hurt. You may be someone that has a hard time doing the hospital bedside thing, seeing someone in a coma, seeing someone injured. You might be triggered by people you hear about that are become vegetables or have brain, they go brain dead. You might be triggered by that, and if you are, it would stem from here. This is also important because in your current life, you could be someone who, if you are finding that you have problems with, or if you've had problems or have problems with creating a family, it could be try to think and see if it feels like it comes from a place of loss, like a place of fear, like a fear-based thing where you fear the loss of either a child or the loss of a loved one. But a lot of times we see women will have, what's it called? Issues. Like women will have like issues getting pregnant, like they'll have a hard time having kids or carrying kids or whatever. They'll miscarriages a lot when it comes to a previous life where their child was like killed, fatally injured, or whatever under their watch. So if you find that you've had either issues creating a family, like mentally like wanting a family, or even two, literally physically having issues creating a family in that way, if you find that speaks to you, it's because it would stem from here. Because there's something about like this is a very like intense period. You can also be very overprotective and overprotective of friends or family. You could be like someone you're the one that tells your friend, text me when you get home, or don't drive in the rain, or whatever it is. Just keep that in mind if that's the case. But overall too, it does speak to something about an emotional, like, what's the word? Incomprehensibility. Like something where it's like, you might, either one, it's hard to process these complex emotions during these really tough situations for you, like harder than a lot of people, or you could have come back in this life having not known how to do that before, and in this life you could be very on the ball with things and very, like astute with your emotions, and what's happening and how to process them and how to help others grieve. Honestly, like this is the kind of thing where you might come back and become a grief counselor, So keep that in mind as well if that speaks to you. That could also be something if you're thinking about any kind of like career change, or you want to take up a new skill or something like that. This might be coming up for that purpose if that's the case, if you are looking for something. And it might be interesting for you to look into grief recovery counselors or therapists or something like that, if that speaks to you at all. And if not, that's fine. Just saying. So let's go to the next important day. Here we have Mother Nature card. The Mother Nature card usually is about like natural disasters happening. So I'm trying to like connect with that. Here we have the Friends card. So the friends are involved with the Mother Nature card. And then we have Sorrow. Here's kind of like a sad sorrow card. So what comes up right away is something about the town where you live was affected more than just you. And I feel like there's this, it's an interesting thing actually, because after this weird emotional kind of like, not a trap, but it's like an emotional, like you can't get out of it, like you're stuck emotionally here. It's almost like this broke you open in some way, where here we're seeing or feeling you allowing yourself to kind of like empathize more with people that you wouldn't have empathized with before at all. So we're also seeing something happen here where it's actually making you a bit more social, which is kind of odd, because here we're looking at like this woodsman who's all alone on his property. Yeah, he has his family, but he's outside a lot, takes care of the land, whatever. And then here we see someone who is coming into town more, And by this point, what's happening here with this Mother Nature thing, it feels like there was like a devastating season, whether it was winter or spring, whatever it was, there was a season that devastated the land in a way where it took a lot of crops away from a lot of people. And you're in a region where it's all about the crops. Like, you're in a region where the rest of the country kind of like imports from, if that makes sense. So the crops become devastated is what it feels like. And it's not necessarily winter, it could be, but it's also like a feeling it could be like a spring with the bugs kind of thing, like a weird bug infestation that killed a lot of like grain or something. And I also feel like we're actually looking, if we're going to the UK or England, we're going more to the West Coast, if anything, so keep that in mind as well. If you've been intrigued by what's on the way, it's almost like it would be near Wales, but maybe not quite. So keep that in mind as well. But anyway, so we're seeing this guy now empathizing with his fellow landsmen, so to speak, his fellow neighbors in a way, also coming out of his shell and coming here. And what they're showing me is like, it is a pub situation. It's like guys like drinking together kind of thing, and just like kind of like lamenting what's happening, because there is a big loss. It's gonna be a hit. It's gonna be like a hard something is coming up because of the loss. Okay, sorry. So it gets a little convoluted because what's coming through is like even like something political happening, like where it's like the region where you live is like already kind of, it's already, what's it called, like under scrutiny for something. And it's almost like there's a feeling of fear of almost like the royal whatever, or the main city, whatever it is, who rules over you. It's almost like a fear of them coming in to kind of like control the situation. That's how bad it is, but I'm not seeing any of that happening. I'm just seeing the fear of it. So actually in your current life, how that could connect with you is, one, you might be someone that's very independent, that's very, that's into more like what's called owning their home than renting. The feeling of like needing to be in charge of your own properties and your own things, yourself, like everything. It's just about not giving other people power or authority over you. So if you've ever had issues with authority figures, if you have issues even politically, if you're triggered by that, by the idea of very few people having so much power over other people who are actually much harder workers, if that kind of situation, that might be a trigger to you. And if that is, it would be speaking to this issue right here, because there is like a political edge to it. So keep that in mind as well. And there's also something about taking a while to warm up to people. So you could have come back in this life where either one, you do take a while for people to warm up, or you warm up to people, make friends, trust them, all that stuff. Or you could have come back in this life like ready to go, like geared up to go and make friends and be sociable and do all these things, because it took you a while. It's basically not the end of your life, but we're looking at someone who is, at this point, the silver's coming through the beard, and we're looking at a guy who's like at least in his lower 60s, and that's, I feel like that's kind of older for this time period in this region, what we're looking at, where people may not live, how long we live now. So that said, it took him late in life to learn these like skills, and to learn to empathize more, and to learn that people are not so bad, and we actually have things in common. So you could be someone, again, that it takes a while to warm up, or you came back in ready to go because it was more towards the end of your life where you figured this out. And so your soul could have been excited and been like, okay, I want to get back in so I can like use these social skills now, because empathy is very important, which, by the way, I feel like that's coming up too, because empathy is very important. I don't know how else to say that. There's also something about empathy where it makes it so it's inconveniencing to you, and there's a message in there about not doing that. So if you're someone who finds that you're a people pleaser, or if you find that oh, what's it called? So you're a people pleaser, or you just kind of like want to fix other people's problems, you know? And you might feel like that's like, heck, people might come to you with their problems, just you might be that kind of person. But you don't need to feel obligated to do that. So just keep that in mind if you ever do feel that way. If that speaks to you, if that speaks to you, it would be coming through to tell you not to feel that way, not to compromise yourself so much. Just make sure that you are keeping tabs on your own like mental health in that way. Like make sure that you're not what's the word? What's it called when you like run yourself thin? Is that the word? Like just don't spread yourself too thin. There you go. Basically it's like don't spread yourself too thin. And if that speaks to you, awesome. And if not, okay, that's fine. But we are seeing yeah, I just feel like this is empathy day. So let's go to your death. Burning! Burning. Okay, so I want to see what's going on here because when I laid that card down, there was a visual of just this guy sitting. So I'm trying to see where, because it feels like he's indoors. I feel like there's like, I'm trying to, it's almost like a house fire. Because a lot of times when we get this card, it's for like burning, you know, witches burning at the stake or things like that. But what it feels like is an inhalation of smoke from a fire that was started. And it's like, it's the feeling that the fire did not burn the whole building down or the house or wherever you are. I feel like it's your home. It didn't burn the whole thing down. It was like salvaged, but they didn't get to the house in time. Like it wasn't put out in time because it took up like a part of the house. I feel like you fell asleep. And so you fell asleep. It feels like it's evening to nighttime and you fell asleep in a chair and somebody left something where it can start a fire and it started a fire and it feels like all the smoke what's the word, plumed or whatever, went into your room. And it's almost like you didn't die from burning, you died from smoke inhalation. So in your current life, you could be someone who either hates smoke, being around smokers, smoking people, or two, you could be someone who's come back into this life to experience it in a weird way. Like that's happened before where we get smokers who have died from smoke, they come back to like smoke because they didn't get to actually experience the fun side of smoking. They just died from it. So that's how you can connect in both ways. Is one, you could absolutely abhor smoke and you try to get people to stop smoking and you know you're just against that, or you could be a smoker, you see. So keep that in mind. This would also speak to if you get sick, if you get bronchitis, if you get congested in your lungs, in your if you're a cougher, you get bronchitis, pneumonia, you get colds or flus. If you're that person that gets that congestion happening in your chest during certain seasons, or just because you have a low immune system for some reason, it would stem from here because there's this whole like intake of all this smoke that kills you. Also, the feeling of lightheadedness, if you get vertigo, if you get lightheadedness, if you get headaches, if you get like stuffed up feelings, so basically you want to check for any like sinus things is what I'm talking about. So we're looking at the chest and we're looking at sinus to head. And you could be it could also mean that you have a very keen sense of smell. Okay, so keep that in mind. And if that's the case, it would stem from here. Okay, you can also be very dried out, as in like dehydrated. If you find that you're chronically dehydrated, start drinking more water. It would come from here as well. So the lesson here, this lesson is awesome. This is the boundaries card, and with the boundaries card, it's wonderful because we see a lot of boundaries come down. Some people need to build them, but in this case we're seeing them come down, which is needed because this is a person that's very closed off and like just doing like, the only reason he has a wife and you know like a family is because it was like that's what you do. You know, he was introduced to a lady and there was companionship and they married, and it was very like there was, you know, so there's a lot of like emotional boundaries for the self and others, and those came down. So that lesson was definitely learned in this lifetime, which is amazing. But I also feel like this is coming up just, you know, currently for you to consider yourself as far as what's happening today with your boundaries. It's just a question. It's like, do you keep tabs of your boundaries? Do you have healthy boundaries, or are your boundaries unhealthy? From the feel of things, it would be, again, you come through into this current life again, and you might be working on the same thing where you're working on lowering those boundaries even more. It could be a theme, you just keep coming back, and it could be a theme that you're working on until you master it. Because here we're seeing the beginning of boundaries fall at the end of the life, where in your current life you could have been born and already just had those boundaries down and learning and just love, love, love. And a lot of times people who come in with the boundaries down need to learn to build healthy boundaries. Otherwise, you could have just come in and you've just been learning to continue to lower the boundaries down when it comes to empathizing with other humans, and, just like learning to allow love in as well as give love. So there's a lot of that whole like boundaries around self-love and love from others. And that's just something, if that speaks to you, just keep in mind, it's coming through as just like a little reminder, a little ding, ding, ding. Hey, just remember to keep healthy boundaries and to assess and maybe get rid of unhealthy boundaries. So really what this is coming down to is like a self-assessment. I feel like that's what's coming through, is like based on what we're looking at this guy with all the things he's going through and the changes emotionally. It's almost like this current life, you're coming back to kind of self-assess where you are, or at least for now, this is coming through right now in your life, to self-assess where you are emotionally, and as far as it goes, like specifics is about your boundaries, okay? So keep that in mind. If that speaks to you, great. If not, that's okay. Just keep in mind that certain thoughts might filter in over the next few days and fill in any gaps you may have or any questions you may have. So keep in mind and pay attention to those thoughts. So there is your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to make connections, and thanks for letting me read you.